Despite lacking popular support and any direct evidence of an impeachable offense, House Republicans are signaling that they intend to impeach President Biden next year and may even drag it out to hurt him politically before the election. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. All right, folks, it's been a couple of weeks since we've done an update on the impeachment inquiry led by House Republicans against the president. It is still ongoing, even though we have Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the war between Israel and Hamas, government shutdown threats, which have been kicked down the road until January in part and then February in part. All sorts of domestic and international issues with which to deal, and the Republicans instead are focused on hurting the president politically, and they're pulling out all the stops. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has given mixed signals on this front, so it's a bit of a mess. But I want to play a couple of clips, one from James Comr, who is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. He's basically the Grand Inquisitor in the impeachment inquiry against President Biden. This is what he had to say recently to Judge Jeanine Pirro on the Fox Propaganda Network.
I mean, as a former prosecutor myself, irrespective of what Hunter says, you've got a clearly prima facie case here.
I think so. I've said that for many months. I think we've produced many smoking guns. There are people in the mainstream media that want to say otherwise, but poll after poll comes out and shows that the American people are keeping up with this investigation, and they realize that something bad is going on here, and the President of the United States has been dishonest.
So he says, listen, we produce many smoking guns. Well, the fact of the matter is that outside of somebody like Jeanine Pirro, many Fox News personalities would contest that characterization. I mean, James Comr has been reprimanded by Steve Doocy and Brian Kilmeade of Fox and Friends, Maria Bartiromo, who's as deranged a MAGA cultist as it gets, for failing consistently to deliver the smoking gun. He's been called out left, right, and center on this, so he's lying. Now, some of the smoking guns that he would consider he's produced are the checks, the loans that were paid by President Biden when he was a civilian in 2018. He wasn't president or vice president. He was just regular Joe Biden, and he loaned his brother $200,000. They have direct, financial corroboration of that. They have the bank records to prove it. And then a matter of months later, Jim Biden, President Biden's brother, paid those loans back. Based on all available evidence, those are fairly straightforward interfamily loans. And again, Joe Biden wasn't in office at the time. And moreover, House Republicans have failed utterly to produce any sort of, pro to the quid pro quo. What could Joe Biden have done as a private citizen in some sort of illegal, money laundering scheme? They produced no evidence for their bold claims. They've also touted the testimony of Devin Archer, who was one of Hunter Biden's business partners, who said explicitly he had no evidence that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden ever discussed their business dealings, or Hunter Biden's business dealings, rather. He had no evidence that Joe Biden ever tried to change U.S. policy or leverage policy to benefit Hunter Biden's business dealings, and actually testified under oath that he would say the opposite. He was like, listen, as far as I can tell, Joe Biden did nothing like that. So it's been one failure after another. But note what Comr says at the end. He appeals to polls. He's like, listen, the polls are showing that the American people are seeing this president as a liar and corrupt. And we'll get to the polls in a second. But clearly the clue is he's trying to influence public opinion. He's not trying to establish a fact pattern or answer a factual question. He's trying to effectively wield propaganda. How effective has it been? Well, again, we'll get to that in a second. But another thing I want to play here is a clip from another House Republican, Daryl Isa, and he makes it even more explicit. Listen to what he says to Fox propagandist Maria Bartiromo.
Certainly, if we have a somewhat more protracted trial, not a quick vote on the floor, but a series of the things that you normally see in impeachment, it might convince the American people how wrong this president is in a greater amount, in an amount that could cause him to change his policies, or in the alternative, get the American people to realize we need to change this president.
So there you have it. Daryl Isa is using impeachment as a political tool to pressure the public and to pressure the president. Okay, they want to drag it out next year during an election year, any sort of impeachment against the president, against Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, against any Biden administration official. It's not a matter of, again, expelling someone that they see as corrupt. It's that they know they can't bring the evidence to successfully convict in the Senate. They may not be able to pass attempts to impeach Biden, articles of impeachment against Biden, and even Mayorkas have failed consistently. So they may not be able to even successfully, bring an impeachment in the House. But so they know that their fact basis is so wispy thin. But if they get the opportunity, instead of trying to make a slam dunk case, as the Democrats did the 2 times they impeached Trump, they went for broke. You agree or disagree. They didn't try to drag it out. They didn't try to do it for entertainment. Republicans can't do that. Republicans don't want to do it. They want to politicize it in an election year to hurt the president. So then you think, okay, well, Comr and Issa are appealing to popularity. They're appealing to public sentiment. How popular is the idea that Joe Biden should be impeached or the support for the impeachment inquiry? And the thing is, it is relatively close. That's the sad thing. Now, as of most recent polling that I've seen, the majority of the country, 52% of registered voters at least polled, disapprove of how Republicans are handling the impeachment inquiry. But it is also a sobering statistics that 47% of registered voters and actually a majority of independents say that they do approve of, House Republicans' impeachment inquiry into the president, despite how brazenly political and how brazenly weak it actually is. But it goes beyond that still, because one of the central questions is President Biden's involvement in Hunter Biden's private businesses. And as we've discussed in previous videos, Republicans have produced zero evidence for it. Their star witness, Devin Archer, said he witnessed no conversation between Joe and Hunter Biden with respect to business. They have nothing, okay? And yet, there's this quote, I think it's attributed to Mark Twain, that a lie travels around the world twice in the time it takes for the truth to lace up its shoes. And I may be butchering that quote. I'm going off memory. But the idea is that it's much easier to sell lies than to tell truths. And so the propaganda that the Republican Party has unleashed against Joe Biden has been effective. It's been penetrative in certain respects in terms of, perceiving Biden as corrupt with regard to his son. So this was a recent poll from Harvard University. Do you think that Joe Biden helped and participated in Hunter Biden's business, or did he not participate and help in his son's business? 60% of the American people, based on this poll, and it's a credible poll, believe that Joe Biden did participate in Hunter Biden's business. Now, that's a separate question. It's related, but separate from, do you think Joe Biden committed an impeachable offense? As far as I know, the majority of the country in poll after poll after poll says even if Joe Biden was corruptly involved in Hunter Biden's business, he should not be impeached. But the fact of the matter is, again, Republicans have offered no evidence for any of this. None. And yet, at least in this one respect, the lie is persuasive. That's an absolutely sobering statistic. And the thing is, Republicans have telegraphed this strategy before. This was Kevin McCarthy during the 2016 election talking about what the Benghazi hearings did to Hillary Clinton's candidacy.
Everybody thought Hillary Clinton was unbeatable, right? But we put together a Benghazi special committee, a select committee. What are her numbers today? Her numbers are dropping. Why? Because she's untrustable. But no one would have known any of that had happened had we not thought.
So again, Kevin McCarthy is making the case that the Benghazi, hearings were politically designed to hurt her aspirations to become president in the following election, which was the 2016 election. Just very transparent. This is the same playbook. Now, Mike Johnson is the guy who holds, in theory at least, Joe Biden's impeachment in his hands. Now, in the House of Representatives, to impeach an executive official or a judicial officer, whoever, even the president, all you need is a majority vote, right? You need a majority of the House of Representatives, so 50% plus one, to successfully impeach somebody. Then you need a 2/3 supermajority conviction in the Senate. That's not going to happen. So an impeachment of President Biden is dead on arrival, but there's a possibility that he may be at least successfully impeached. He won't be convicted. He may be impeached. Mike Johnson, we talked about this in a previous video. He recently said in a closed-door meeting with House GOP moderates that there is insufficient evidence at the moment to initiate formal impeachment proceedings. Okay? And yet, after that news broke, he also said a couple of days later that the impeachment inquiry has his full and unwavering support. So he's trying to walk a tightrope. He says, I I commend the good work of Chairman Comr, Jordan, and Smith. And again, those are the chairmen of the House Oversight Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, and the House Ways and Means Committee. As we move forward toward an inflection point in this critical investigation, they have my full and unwavering support. So there's no telling where this will land. I have a hard time believing that they won't impeach Biden. I think even if moderate Republicans, 18 of whom in the Republican caucus live in Biden districts that voted for them, yes, Republicans, but also voted for the president and are likely not to support an impeachment unless the Republicans bring absolutely damning evidence, which they haven't. I can't imagine that that they won't at least attempt to vote on an impeachment. I can't imagine, because what are they going to say to Trump and the MAGA base? Hey, look, we looked into Joe Biden. We told the world that we had impeachable evidence, that we produced many smoking guns. But you know what? After reconsidering it, we're just not going to proceed. It seems unlikely. Now, maybe those 18 swing district Republicans will, have the courage to either do the right thing or at least do the right thing by themselves, again, because they're in moderate districts, and just not support an impeachment vote. But can you imagine? They're going to be primaried, right? The political consequences. Basically, what I'm saying is congressional Republicans have put themselves in between a rock and a hard place, a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So then the question becomes, well, what effect will it have on the 2024 election? Well, historically speaking, impeachments for both Democratic presidents and Republican presidents, it happened with President Clinton, it happened with Trump, they tend to galvanize the base because it tends to piss the base off when you try to impeach a president. So historically speaking, that could happen here. On the other hand, this could also theoretically hurt President Biden too if Republicans unleash their propaganda arm effectively. So I don't know. I think an impeachment's bad either way. I hope it doesn't happen. I really hope it doesn't happen, but that would require the Republican Party to be much more introspective and good faith than they have been. So let me know what you think in the comments.